Hello and welcome. Today, I would love to talk to you about how I maintain my creative practice as a mother. I now have an almost 15-year-old daughter, and I realized early in her life that I was going to have to find a way to keep making art, even in small ways, to maintain my sanity. Having a child helped me understand how much art is part of my mental health care routine and that I really needed it. It wasn't optional. It wasn't just a hobby. It was necessary for me to thrive. So, if you're wondering about having children and how this will affect your creative practice, if you are elbow deep in mothering and missing your free time a little bit so that you can still maintain your creative practice, then I would love to go over a few things that worked for me, maybe a few things will work for you. If you're new here, my name is Genevieve. I'm an artist, I'm a tattoo artist and an illustrator and a mother of a teenager. I'm just going to share with you a bit of a retrospective, what I wish someone had told me back in the early days, and how I was able to maintain consistent creative practice over the years. Now, I'm specifically talking to mothers rather than parents because I do feel while dads can be super helpful, other partners, other parents and caregivers can be really helpful, there's an extra load on mom, and that's just undeniable. I hadn't realized how much I needed to create until I had a baby. And I did channel a lot of that creative energy into baby things like making baby quilts and baby clothes and knitting little baby hats. And I felt very creatively inspired when I was pregnant. And once I had the baby, you're in the weeds for a while and you're pretty exhausted. But I started making, I couldn't stop. I started sewing all kinds of things when she was taking a nap or anytime I had a moment. I realized that it was a hunger in me to be able to keep creating. And it wasn't just a fun little thing that I did when I had lots of time and energy. It was something I craved to do even when I didn't have time and energy. So if this speaks to you, keep hanging out. Now, let's be real. In the early days, time, energy, they were scarce. I didn't have a lot of extra money for art supplies. And I felt guilty wanting to sneak away and do a little art on the side when there were so many other things that needed doing. I learned that I had to prioritize my self as a person with a small child because it's really easy to just slip through the cracks as a mother. And you have to hold on to your sense of self with white knuckles or it disappears pretty quickly. Now, full disclosure, I only have one child, and that I think makes a difference. I think if I had more, it would have been even more challenging. But when you just have one child and one nap time to work with, that does make it simpler. One of the biggest things I had to grieve over was not having hours to work on a creative project. I couldn't stand and work on a painting for the better part of an afternoon anymore. It actually improved my creative practice because I had to learn how to work really lean. I had to do a lot of prep in advance because I might only get 1 hour for execution of something like a painting. So I had to do a lot of internal planning, visualizing, quick little sketches, make sure I had everything situated. So by the time I had the time to actually do some painting, then I could just execute quickly. I could just go in and make it happen. This time limitation actually helped me be more decisive in my creative practice, like not hemming and hawing over, should I do this or that? I could just make it happen. I could just jump in and go. I had to learn how to just have little creative snacks, if you will. I was giving my toddler snacks, and my snack was I would just do a quick little doodle or play around with kid art supplies. Your kids playing with paints and you can play around too. And it reminds you about the fun of creativity and why you enjoyed it in the beginning. I realized creativity really isn't selfish. And however you express your creativity, if you write, if you paint, if you sew clothes, it doesn't really matter. It's still a time to really tune into yourself, what your inner world wants to express, And in the end, I felt like it was better for my child because I was a lot less burned out. I had more of a place to call my own, even if it was on the inside. And I also conveyed to her that mom has needs too, and she can come along for the ride. I would let her play with my art supplies while I worked. I would have her alongside me while I did a lot of creative things. She's actually a prolific artist herself. And I think part of it was I took her along with me on some art journeys and we just played together. I would take her to the art supply store, let her pick something out. It might just be a colored pencil. And it was a way for us to have a plaything together that we both really enjoyed. To this day, I still feel like my creative practice has been improved by motherhood. This is not a thing you hear a lot. It's you got to pick one or the other. But learning how to work just succinctly really, it stuck with me. And I still, even now that she's older, I do get some more extra time. Instead of fighting the limitations and resenting having a kid need me, I started to embrace the limitations. And in art class, if you had an art teacher who was like, you have to pick two colors and go draw a landscape with only these two colors, that limitation can be freeing and inspiring. So, in the end, it has improved my creative practice. There will be seasons of creativity, even if you don't have a child or you're considering in the future having a child. It just ebbs and flows. The muses smile upon you sometimes and not others. Sometimes it felt really abundant. There was definitely times when I was in a high production mode, maybe getting ready for an art show or working on a big project. I once did a king-sized quilt, which took up a whole lot of time, and I wasn't very skilled at quilting. And it took over the dining room, and I was sewing. And I just let my daughter play with the scraps. She was really impressed with my sewing abilities. She wanted to inform how I put some of the pieces together, and it became fun. As she's gotten older and she hasn't needed me quite as much, I've been able to just expand my creative practice so that I never really left it. It was minimized a little bit. I had to work within some time constraints, but in the end, I feel even more prolific now than I did when before she was born. If you're in the thick of early motherhood and you're really just missing maybe more than you thought you would, the time to just play around, to explore, to experiment. This era won't last forever, having young children, and you can make do with little art snacks. Your creativity won't go away. It might be on hold a little bit. Whenever you're able, prioritize it. When my child would go to a friend's house or to a childcare place, I would use that time for creativity. And yes, the other things in life need to get done. The house needs to be cleaned, the laundry folded, the dishes need to get done. I'm really glad that I maintained a sense of self so that now that she's getting older and getting closer to adulthood, I still have a really solid me that I can return to at the end of the day. And I feel I've modeled that also for her as a healthy practice of keeping a sense of self and expressing it. Now, I will add something that helped that not everyone will be able to do. My daughter's homeschooled, and that might sound really time consuming, but it actually gave us a lot of schedule flexibility so that we could do a little schooling, we could go to an art museum, we could do a lot of different things. And I didn't just send her to school and then I go to work and then we're both tired. I chose a career path that is a little more flexible. It's not a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. I had Mondays off, for example, so that would be a day that a little more creativity could happen. I also went through a divorce from her dad. And so from the age of 7 onward, she was at her dad's house part of the time. That part is unique to my story and it's not for everyone. I wouldn't wish divorce on anyone, but it did give me a little more airspace. And that also helped. And I really took the bull by the horns, as they say, and utilized that time for my creative practice. And it's all been worth it. Looking back, I'm really glad I didn't give up on my art or my creative practice, that I thought of it as another child of mine. And this child would be tugging on my skirt too. Not as high of a priority as an actual human child, but I want to tell you, looking back, it's worth it. You can do it. Hang in there. I know you're tired. You want to take a nap. You should take a nap. But if you could also take 30 minutes, if you can squeeze 30 minutes, and maybe that's the time you might be scrolling on your phone, could you be taking that time and just taking one sketchbook page a day? Even that little bit will sustain you more than you realize. So you got this. If you like talking about creativity, being a multi-passionate creative, finding ways to have multiple streams of revenue, maintaining a work-life balance, and self-care so that you can continue creating, I'd love for you to hit subscribe. Let me hear your story. Are you pondering becoming a mother and you're worried about how it'll affect your art practice? Do you already have children? And you're, what the heck have I done? Hey, no shame in that. It's hard. Mothering's really hard. And however you need to maintain your sense of self so that you can still be a person and not just mom, please do. Please take care of yourself. And if art is a way to do it, please do it. It's worth it.